Oh my god, you guys, happy 2024! New year, but same old me because I keep buying new books instead of reading the ones I have on my TBR list. So in this video, I'm going to be listing 24 books I already have and I want to read in the year 2024 so I don't buy new books instead. So I'm going to be listing each of the 2024 books and giving you a little bit of what they're about in case you want to read them as well in the new year. So let's get into it. The first book is Dear Dolly on Love, Life and Friendships by Dolly Alderton. This book is actually a collection of Dolly's advice from her Sunday Times column. Since 2020, people have written to Dolly asking for advice and Dolly has responded with lots of warmth and wit. Questions range from painfully relatable to occasionally bizarre, and these topics apparently include breakups, body issues, family, friendships, dating, divorce, social media, sex, loneliness, love and everything in between. Blimey, that is a lot of stuff. But I feel like reading a book to do with advice on every aspect of my life is probably a good way to start 2024. The second book is Men Who Hate Women by Laura Bates. The author in this book basically goes undercover to expose the vast networks of incels and misogynists that exist worldwide, but they pretty much go virtually undetected. She explores how teenage boys are groomed and radicalized, ultimately resulting in extremist men that commit terrible acts against women. I've been putting this book off for ages because I know it's going to be a very heavy read and probably make me very depressed about the world we live in, but 2024 is the year of confronting uncomfortable truths, and this is why it's on my list for next year to read. The third book on my list is The Idiot by Elif Batuman? I'm probably saying this wrong. I'm sorry to the author. This is a coming-of-age novel set in Harvard in the mid-90s. The novel follows a young girl navigating the uncertain life of college life, young love, and finding a direction and purpose in life, which I think we all need. The protagonist comes from a very privileged and rich Turkish background, and vaguely knows that she wants to be a writer, even though she doesn't really enjoy it. So she studies languages and linguistics at university. She then later moves to Hungary to teach English to small villagers. There doesn't seem to really be a plot apart from her navigating what her purpose and aim in life is. And to be honest, this is something that I'm still struggling with at my age, even though I'm way past university. So I want to read this book because I feel like in 2024 it will put me at ease with still not really knowing what I want to do in life. The fourth book on my list is My Sister the Serial Killer by oyinkan Braithwaite. The title pretty much tells you what this book is about, but it's a relatable dark comedy about two sisters, one is a nurse and one is a serial killer, who I believe at the very start of the book has just killed her third boyfriend in the quote of self-defense. I don't really know anything more than that, but I don't really want to because I feel like with these kind of crime thriller books, it's probably best not to know anything when you go into it, so the less I know, the better. The fifth book on my list is Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. I don't really know much about this book, but it seems to revolve around a Jamaican-British woman who's 25 years old trying to navigate her life. Kind of relatable. There's a lot of conflict between her Jamaican-British family who don't really understand her job and the way she's living her life, but at the same time, she wants to live her best version of herself. She's apparently trying to navigate her way through the hot mess of shifting cultures and toxic relationships and emerge with a shred of dignity. Her missteps and misadventures will provoke howls and laughter and tears of pity. I mean, sign me up. The sixth book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. I usually stay away from self-help books because they're usually quite cliche and cringe me out a little bit, and the main message could usually be said in 20 pages, but instead the author really likes to drag it out to 400. But this is one that I've heard that people have said that's a solid book. The author basically teaches you how small changes in your everyday life can lead to very life-altering outcomes by just implementing a few helpful small life hacks. But he also explains why they work using psychology and neuroscience to back it up. I'm all for being productive and self-development in 2024, which is why I'm giving this book a go. Okay, so the next 5 books on my list is actually part of the series, but I'm counting them as books 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And these are the Maze Runner books by James Dashner. So this includes The Maze Runner, The Scorch Trials, The Death Cure, The Kill Order, and finally The Feeder Code. These books are a young adult dystopian novel series that basically follows a 16-year-old boy who one day wakes up in a maze with absolutely no memory. Whilst he has no memory of his life before the maze, he makes other friends with kids that are also there in the maze. And the books revolve around a series of deadly tests whilst also trying to uncover who's orchestrating them all. I know I'm incredibly late to the game with these series of books because I feel like these were very 2014, but it's fine. I'm better late than never, even though it's literally 10 years later. My 12th book is Friendaholic by Elizabeth Day. This book is basically all about friendships. The author basically unpacks the significance and evolution of friendships, from exploring her own personal unique relationships with the views of others around the world, aiming to discover the crucial influence that friends have on our lives. I feel like there's so many books out there about romantic and sexual relationships that it's actually quite nice to have a book focused on platonic ones instead, because they are honestly just as important in our lives as romantic relationships are. And as a single gal, I'm very much looking forward to reading this. My 13th book is Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. We need some sad fiction books to balance out the feminist self-development we're doing in 2024. This book is about a destitute and desperate former student that one day wanders through the slums in St. Petersburg, and he commits a random act of murder without any remorse or regret because he sees himself as above the conventional moral laws. He then embarks on a dangerous cat and mouse game with a police investigator, and by the end the main character is overcome by his own guilt. The 14th book on my list is The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. This novel is set in Michigan in the 1970s, and it centers around the lives of 5 doomed sisters called the Lisbon Girls. The book is written from the perspective of an anonymous group of teenage boys who struggle to find the reason behind the girls' deaths. And to be honest, I don't really know any more than that. I've wanted to watch the film of this for years, but I wanted to read the book beforehand, so it's finally time I get around to reading the book first just so I can watch the film. Number 15 is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn, another book that's been on my TBR list for so long. So this book centers around a reporter who has actually just been released from a psychiatric hospital, and she has been tasked with an assignment to uncover the murder of 2 preteen girls that happened in her own hometown. And fighting her own demons, she has to unravel the psychological puzzle behind the reason for these murders and find out the town's secrets. I've heard that this is actually Gillian Flynn's best book, so I'm really looking forward to reading it. I've watched the movie Gone Girl, so I kind of understand the vibe of how she writes, so I'm very much looking forward to this. Number 16 is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is another crime book, but however, this is one that TikTok has endorsed, which I am very skeptical about. TikTok recommendations have gone pretty much awful for me the past year. So this novel is a young adult crime thriller, and it has a similar gist to the previous book where there was a murder in someone's hometown. However, someone got convicted for it years ago, but the main character thinks that it doesn't really add up. And of course, she starts investigating the murder herself. I'm skeptical because it's a TikTok endorsed book, but we shall see how this plays out. My 17th book is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This book is about a story of a boy who was birthed from a single teenaged addict's mother in a trailer. And he has no assets apart from his abusive father's good looks, his copper hair, his quick wit, and his fierce talent for survival. This book actually won the Woman's Prize for Fiction in 2023, and I've heard amazing things about it, so I'm very looking forward to reading it. I think I was put off from reading it last year because it's like 700 pages, but I'm trying to get over my fear of big books. It is not that bad, it's fine. My 18th book is Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. This is another chunky book, but I'm persevering, it's fine. This is a historical fiction novel that's set across 8 decades and 4 generations as it follows a Korean family as they move to Japan. It follows each of the characters' search for identity and success whilst battling racism, discrimination, and stereotyping. It's a powerful story of resilience and compassion, whilst it also explores themes of family, death, love, and survival. Also, the sun's like now come through my window and it's really blinding me, but I'm gonna try and carry on. The 19th book on my list is Lapnova by Ottessa moshfegh. This is set in a village that's under constant siege of natural disasters. This novel follows an abused and motherless shepherd boy who has a very close bond with the blind village midwife, and she possesses a very unique ability to communicate with the natural world. I don't actually know anything more about this novel than that, but I kind of want to keep it that way because I love this author and all the work she produces, so I'm sure this is going to be an amazing book based on just knowing that. The 20th book on my list is My Body by Emily Ratajkowski. This book is written by the Emily Ratajkowski, the model, that actress, the gorgeous woman she is. This book is about her own personal exploration of sexuality and feminism and the men's treatment of women and women's realization of this treatment and also them accepting it. She also explores the culture's fetishization with girls and young beauty, its obsession and contempt for women's sexuality, and the perverse dynamics of the fashion and film industry, along with the grey area between consent and abuse. I've heard amazing things about this book and I'm sure that it is incredible. Book 21 is My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This story is about a girl who, when she was 15, had sex with her English teacher. But years later, when she's 32, she sees another student come out accusing this teacher of sexual abuse. At the time, she was convinced that this sex was out of love, but she revisits her past and realizes that it was actually rape. Within this book, she deals with the possibility that she's a victim, along with many others. I feel like this book will be quite an uncomfortable read, but I've heard that it's quite revolutionary, especially in the Me Too movement, so I'm very much looking forward to reading it. Book 22 is I Want to Die But I Want to Eat Tteokbokki by Baek Sehee. This is a part memoir, part self-help book by a South Korean author, and she recounts her long journey through anxiety and depression. She records dialogues with her psychiatrist for a 12-week period, and she begins to detangle the feedback loops, the knee-jerk reactions, and the harmful behavior that keeps her in this cycle of self-abuse. I also detest working in corporate, and I love Korean food, so I feel like I'm gonna very much enjoy this book. Book 23 is Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stuart. This is set in 1981 Glasgow when the city is dying and families are struggling to survive. It follows her mother who once dreamt of a greater life, but since her husband has abandoned her, she then develops a drinking problem where all of her children are trying to save her from, but one by one they abandoned her in order to save themselves. However, one of her sons called Shuggie has held out for the longest, believing if he tries his hardest he can also help his mother escape. I really wanted to read Young Mungo by the same author, but I heard that this is the book that actually comes before. I don't know if they're directly related, but I kind of want to read the author's previous work before reading that book. Last but not least, book 24 is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I feel like a book about sleeping is a nice one to end the year on. This book is written by a scientific expert who basically looks at 20 years of research into why sleep is so important for us. It explores what happens during REM sleep, how caffeine and alcohol affect our sleep, and why our sleep patterns change throughout our lifetime. I feel like as I've got older, I'm struggling more with sleep, so I feel like in order to understand why we sleep a bit better would actually help me sleep. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like it's a logic that makes it sense to me. And those are the 24 books I want to read in 2024. I feel like given that I read 65 books in 2023, this is basically about almost a third of the books that I can have on my TBR list, whilst leaving another 40 books for what I want, which I think that's quite achievable. Watch, we'll come in 2025 and I'll be like, yeah, I only read 5 of these books because I'm useless. But yeah, those are the books on my list. Are any of these books on your 2024 list? If not, what books are? As always, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like, and if you're new here, please subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.